have to do?
It is. So it is now started, and you are free to get the docket moving.
Okay, very good. Jody, we're going to go on the record. Let the record reflect it's Thursday. It's May 6th, 2021, and the Board of Building Appeals is convened to consider the first case on its docket. It's an elevator division case that was set for 12:30. It's case number, excuse me, 21-0044, and it deals with an elevator adjudication dealing with the Ohio State Reformatory in Mansfield, and the division's adjudication number is noted on our docket. Let's have an introduction of the parties. I understand someone is present on behalf of the appellant. State your full name, spell your last name, and the capacity by which you're here in a representative way. We'll do the same thing with the chief of the elevator division. I'll get a waiver to proceed in front of a board of 4 rather than a board of 5 today, assuming I can attain that waiver. And we'll have an oath administered and we'll begin. Is it Mr. Smith?
Yes, it is.
Paul Smith?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, Paul Smith, Executive Director here at the Historic Ohio State Reformatory.
Thank you. Chip?
Charles Updike, Chief Elevator Inspector for the state of Ohio.
Okay, if each of you would stand wherever you're situated, and Jody, would you administer the oath?
Raise your hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do.
Okay. In typical procedural fashion, we'd refer this. We'd start with the appellant, but we can ask Mr. Updike. But first of all, let me. I failed to indicate here. Mr. Gehring, who's one of our members, had a schedule conflict at the 11th hour that prevents his attendance today. So if we proceed as a board of 4 rather than a board of 5, Mr. Smith, a tie vote, if you will, among the board, 2 or 2, or 1 and 1, and 2 abstentions, whatever the case may be, the adjudication order of the elevator division would be upheld. Hearing that, do you still want to proceed today in front of a board of 4?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe that's fine.
Okay, Mr. Updike.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Chip, is it better for you to present first, or Mr. Smith, are you prepared to present?
I can present first, and then if Mr. Smith wants to go on top of that, he can. He's more than welcome.
Okay, please do.
The owner at this particular location is seeking a variance to exceed the maximum permitted rise on a LULA on a limited use, limited application elevator per ASME A17-1, section 5.2. The maximum rise permitted is 25 feet. The proposed lift height is 28 feet. A LULA elevator provides vertical transportation for people with physical disabilities. It is recognized that the able-bodied people will also use LULA elevators. The code restrictions on size, capacity, speed, and rise limits the use of the elevator to lessen the chance of misuse. For example, overcrowding, freight handling, and to avoid compliance issues with the more strict building code requirements. Stretcher cab size of the cab, and fireman's recall. LULA elevators are not intended for multiple passengers, material handling, deliveries, or rescue assistance. I have no objection or conditions for this variance.
Yeah, before we hear from Mr. Smith, any questions of Mr. Updike by members of the board?
No.
That's usually the case. Mr. Smith, do you have anything to add? Probably not, do you?
No, it's just the reason we're asking for that is our ceilings are 14 foot high, and we're in a historical building with existing elevator shafts.
Understood. Questions of Mr. Smith by members of the board?
No.
Okay, hearing none. Any thoughts, comments by members of the board?
I support the variance.
I do as well.
Likewise, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I would entertain a motion.
Yes, Mr. Chair, for Board of Building Appeals case number 21-0044. The appellant is the Mansfield Reformatory Preservation Society. for the premises Old State Reformatory at 100 Reformatory Road, Mansfield, Ohio, 44905. The appellee is Charles Updike, Chief Elevator Inspector for the state of Ohio, and adjudication order number E2021-67233. I move that the variance be granted without condition, noting the no objection of the Chief Elevator Inspector.
Okay, it's indicated live event will continue in a moment. Is everybody still with us?
Yes.
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 Okay, motion was made. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chair.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Mr. Smith, the variance is granted without condition. Best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Chip, what background is behind you?
Are you
Yeah.
which Chip?
Updike.
Hey, nobody cares about me.
I'm
Well,
quarantined. I'm quarantined to the basement. My wife's got a bunch of kids upstairs, so it's just basically a couple blankets
I
there.
just thought maybe you were on site at the reformatory.
No.
Okay, all right, very good, thank you. Okay, so Susan, do you think we're in a position to move forward with the 1 o'clock case?
We are. Case number 21-0046.
Okay, very good. We will move on to that case. Case number 21-0046 is going to be advanced a few minutes to 12:52. That deals with the Solid Ground School and located in Millfield, Ohio. This is a Division of Industrial Compliance case, and the division's adjudication number is noted on the docket. Let's have an introduction of the parties, beginning with the appellant. State your full, it looks like there may be two. State your full name and spell your last name and the capacity by which you're here in a representative way. We'll do the same thing with Mr. Eaton at the division. I'll have an oath administered. I'll get a waiver to proceed in front of a board of 4.
I'm Weston Lombard, Lombard, representing Solid Ground School. I'm the Director of Operations.
Thank you.
And I am Colin Widows, Widdoes, with RVC Architects. I'm acting as an owner's representative.
Okay, very good. Mr. Eaton.
Good afternoon, Jeff Eaton, EATON, Chief Building Official for the Division of Industrial Compliance.
Okay, if each of you would stand, raise your right hand. Jody, would you administer the oath?
You swear that the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
I do.
Okay, you probably heard if you were on the call or the virtual screen a moment ago. We're a board of 5 as created by the legislature. We are a man down, if you will, today due to a scheduling conflict. So a split vote by this board, however that would translate, would require upholding the adjudication order of the division. That being said, does the Solid Ground School wish to proceed in front of a board of 4?
One quick question: if there is a split decision, is there any opportunity to, at that point, postpone, or is this like make the decision now and see what happens?
It would make the decision now.
Okay.
We could reschedule and set you down for another time when we had a board of 5. I will tell you, a board of 5 could have the same result though, right? You could have 2 in favor of a variance, 2 in favor of upholding the adjudication, and you could have an abstention for whatever reason. So it could happen with a board of 5. It's less apt to do it with an odd number than it is with an even number. And I can tell you, and it'll be the time I say this, it'll come back to bite me, but a split vote rarely happens in front of this board.
Okay, let's proceed. Thank you.
Mr. Eaton, your wishes in that regard?
No problem going forward. Thank you.
Okay. Either Mr. Widows or Mr. Lombard, do you have the floor?
Yeah, Colin, would you actually run through the technical aspects for him, and then I'll provide some background on the situation.
So this is The application was for an existing B use building to transfer to a partial E use. It's an existing building, and the code issue we're seeking relief from is table 601, where we are a type 5B construction. The building is a walkout lower level. It is technically not fully 50% below grade, so we're technically 2 stories above grade. So it would be requiring a sprinkler system, and so we're looking for relief of that.
Yeah, and some of the background, we're out in sort of this rural location in a really impoverished community. The local water department cannot supply sufficient pressure to activate the sprinklers. So we've gotten a quote for a tank and pump system that's close to $50,000. Our project it's sort of this new experimental outdoor school. We're just in our beginnings, and that's considerably beyond our budget and capacity to operate the school. So we've consulted with the local fire chief, and he's looked at the building and believes that it would be safe as is with a fire. We've got an alarm system that notifies the fire department. They have an average of a 7-minute response time. And so he thought we could go ahead without the system. I'm hoping you think that as well.
Just to kind of further on, the other specifics of the case are, in order to kind of meet requirements for the conversion to E-use, we are submitting the installed fire alarm system, fully approved, and as Mr. Lombard said, we have documentation from the local water department and fire department kind of related to the specifics of getting a sprinkler system to function in this kind of very rural location.
Okay, questions by members of the board of either Mr. Widows or Mr. Lombard?
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is Paul Began. I think I'm probably not opposed to a variance on this one, although I have some questions specifically related to the fire alarm system. And this is where I wish our board member that's not here would be able to help out, but maybe our other board member, fire official, could help out. The fire alarm system shown as wireless devices. So is that an FPA 72 compliant system? Is that something that's permitted as that? Because, and the reason why we have granted variances for a required sprinkler system in the past, but we would then require an NFPA compliant fire alarm system to be installed in its place. And just from the drawings that were provided with this project, looking at all the devices being wireless, want to understand. I don't want to say, oh yeah, fine, you got an alarm system and you're fine, but you know, I need some assurity or understanding of how your system works.
It'd be put to you, either Mr. Widows or Mr. Lombard.
Yeah, I can only defer to the engineer who drew the plans. He's the one who knows the regulations, and that's what he suggested. I believe it was approved by the review committee. So I do not know the technicalities of that myself.
Jeff, can you weigh in on that, or do you know?
I'm not sure if we've received the shop drawings of the system or not, how far we got in plane review, but I did have that same question Mr. Began had as far as it being a listed system. I know they do have wireless devices available for NFPA 72 compliant systems. So if that's the case and it is a listed system, I was not sure if we've actually received the shop drawings that we normally get to do a final review of those systems.
Mr. Lombard, Mr. Widows, how has the communications with the fire official been? Are those been in meetings? Do we have anything in writing?
We've just got the letter from him. I've had him out to the site twice to consult, but I don't have any minutes from those meetings or anything. He said he's happy to accept a phone call during this meeting if that's possible, but he's not at a computer.
Well, okay, I don't know that we have the answer to the question down to the satisfaction necessarily of Mr. Began or Mr. Eaton for that matter. Chip, what's your thought?
I mean, I guess I'm like Paul. In principle, I'm okay with the variance to the sprinkler system, but yes, it would have to be an NFPA compliant alarm system. My other issue or question is these windows in the basement / first floor, whatever we want to call it, are these, there's only a couple of pictures here, but are these windows, can you use them as a means of egress?
Yeah, they slide sideways and could be used as a means of egress.
Yes, they meet all egress clearance requirements.
Okay.
So
Go ahead.
sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
So, really what it comes down to is whether or not we are a full 2-story above grade. The other route we could have taken, which you can see from the documentation Mr. Lombard supplied, is to further bury the building to get above that. So we would just be 1 story above grade. That proposes and creates a number of other scenarios that are problematic for them. It's a school for young children, so there's a lot of kind of retaining walls and things that would be required. It's also where it is on the site. It's kind of at the ridge, at the extension, the end of a ridge. So it's kind of fairly narrow there. Again, raising that grade would force the access road kind of that circles the building to have to be adjusted again on a narrow land. So there's a number of considerations that kind of are forcing our hand there.
Does the fire official's letter, I don't have it in front of me, that I know it's dated in March. Can someone enlighten me what it says? Does it require a compliant system? Okay.
1 sec.
Yeah, we can share that if that's
Can you all see that okay?
I cannot.
You cannot.
I see.
Hold on a second. Let me see if I will put it up, Mr. Chair.
Right, I see it, but I just can't see it. There we are. I have it now. Thank you. So, Chip, I'll ask you, with the low occupant load and an approved fire alarm system, what does that mean? Does that mean compliant?
Mr. Chair, this is Jeff.
Yeah, hey, Jeff. Hey.
We do have the fire alarm shop drawings and they are NFPA 72 listed,
Okay.
as well as various UL listings.
I take it, Mr. Chair, that by the fire chief's letter, this is just my interpretation, but when he said, or when he writes approved fire alarm system, I take that as approved by the state of Ohio, by the building department, and by further interpretation, I would conclude that that's a NFPA compliant system, not just something you go to Home Depot and buy.
So Mr. Widows and Mr. Lombard, if we were to impose a condition that required the compliance it looks like those drawings have already been submitted to Mr. Eaton's office.
Maybe stand lady.
So
Maybe stand lady.
someone needs to mute. Someone needs to mute. Okay, well, let me ask members of the board, are you comfortable granting the variance on a condition that requires the compliance system?
I am.
Yeah, I guess that, I have a question for the architect. What is going on the first floor, the basement level? There's a lot of offices down there. I understand there's some classrooms on the second floor.
So the building, and perhaps Mr. Lombard would be better to speak to this, but the building is actually owned by Solid Ground Farm and is used for kind of farm operations as well, which is why it was initially approved as a B use. The school use, as Mr. Lombard said, it's really a nature-based kind of curriculum. So the interior spaces are really secondary support and are rarely used. They are out in all weather. So the first floor spaces are really just business use. There's an office there, storage rooms, and then kind of work rooms as they're kind of farm goods in and out of the space there. Really not for the school use. So the school uses are really the second floor spaces only.
Yeah, to add that, it's actually the teachers use the downstairs for materials supply, and there's like a break room. They have a lot of like their books and equipment so that they can access materials that they need.
So it's not for farm fertilizer and stuff like that down there?
No fertilizer, no.
Maybe some veggies.
Okay. I'm not opposed to the variance either.
Paul, I assume you're not either?
I'm not opposed to variance, however, again, looking at the drawings, again, this is more for the fire alarm detection. There are rooms that they are currently open to each other, and some rooms that are closed off from each other, where there's a smoke detector on one of the rooms and a horn strobe in the other rooms, and not vice versa. So I actually have a detailed list of like I would like to see on the first floor, adding a smoke detector in the entry, room 105, adding a smoke detector in the classroom 107, adding a strobe in classroom 1, room 106, and add a smoke detector in the stair, room number 111. In the basement, then I would want to add in break room 100, add a strobe. In workroom 101, add a smoke detector. In the storage room 103, add a strobe, and then in the bathroom 104, add a smoke detector. And it may seem a little bit like overkill because some of these rooms are open to each other, but as we know, smoke would rise. It's not necessarily going to go into the next room through a doorway, even if there is no door on it. It might be go and get trapped up at the ceiling. So I think the added smoke detectors in each of those compartmentalized rooms, even though technically they're open to each other, would be a good idea.
Let me, in order to advance this, Mr. Widows, Mr. Lombard, any thoughts or comments on what Mr. Began just suggested?
I would be willing to do that if that's the safest option.
Okay. Paul, do you need a minute? Are you going to list those out in as separate conditions?
I would add, no, I would probably add one condition that would mention all of those particular items. I did want to ask one other question about the occupant load for this, if we wanted to add anything other than that was provided on the drawings or minimize it. Well, only because I didn't see, and maybe I wasn't looking close enough, is the occupant load shown somewhere on the drawings?
Yeah, in the TL1, the cover sheet in our code summary, we set at 45. Left-hand column on the page.
Oh, okay, I see it there. I guess I'm okay with that. I just wanted to check sure with the rest of the board members that I think it's going to be difficult for them to get 45 people in this house. So I think by use is really going to probably limit it more than us putting a number. I just wanted to make sure that we discuss that.
Brad, Chip?
But I mean, different than what they calculated? You want to use a smaller?
No, I just wanted to bring it up as a point of discussion, right? We have kids in a building that is not sprinklered. Half of the building or half of a floor of a building is below grade. To bring it up as a point of discussion.
I'm sorry, a truck drove by when you were finishing your statement, Paul.
That's okay. No, again, I just want to bring it up as a point of discussion, only because we have a building that is unsprinklered. It's going to be occupied by children, and half of one of the floors is below grade. So I just wanted to, again, bring it up as a point of discussion as far as if want to discuss any of the occupancy or limiting any of those spaces. So
I thought about that as well, and I guess this to the appellants, is there a door on the basement level that exits to the outside?
Yeah, there are two doors that exit to the outside on the basement, two on the upper floor as well.
I mean, I understand your concern, Paul, and I think this is actually probably safer from the standpoint that there's more means of egress. I mean, because if the building were completely, if the first floor or basement level was completely below grade, then there'd be no sprinkler system. Whereas this has an additional means of egress.
okay.
Brad?
I mean, on the second floor, are there two means of egress? I guess there's a ramp and a door and
then there's the porch space, I think 2 spaces egress onto that.
you go out on the deck, I guess. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And then there's like just one step down from the deck. It's almost at ground level.
Yeah, I have no further questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, well, so what do we want to limit occupancy, or are we okay leaving it alone? I guess that's the question, right?
Yeah, I would be okay with leaving it as it is. Again, I just wanted to make sure that we talk about it. And then I do like to hear Mr. Eaton's position about support for this or not.
Mr. Chair, we're in support of the variance with the alarm detection system that's proposed, including the additional locations and devices Mr. Began mentioned. I did have one question, Mr. Chair, from Mr. Lombard.
Go ahead.
If school is subject to any type of fire drills, or they have a emergency operation plan that they implement or conduct periodic drills for students to familiarity out of the building.
You can answer that, Mr. Lombard.
Yes, we do. We have a quite extensive safety protocol document that does include periodic fire drills and all sorts of things relating to farm activities as well.
Thank you. Yeah, with that, We're okay with the request, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Paul, are you going to post proposed conditions, or are you just going to read them?
I will post them. If you just give me one moment, Mr. Chair, to make it into a form that will be able to be read.
Okay, we'll go off record for just a second, Jody.
All right.
Okay, Jody, we'll go back on the record.
We'll go back on the record until my computer figures out how to share the screen. It's not like I haven't been doing it for the past year. It just seems to be a little bit.
You had difficulty the last time, though.
Well, I had actually had to ask Miss Steer if she could see my video because I can't see my own video feed, so I'm not sure what's going on. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this, Mr. Chair.
See who might be able to help.
All right. Let me just ask, can people see what is up on the screen or no?
Nothing appears on my screen other than Jeff and his new backdrop.
Okay, that's what I thought. So I am sharing my desktop, but it's not allowing me to share documents on my desktop.
I just saw a bunch of multiple screens.
Yeah. Here we go.
Try reading them.
Got it.
There we go. It finally did it.
Okay, Mr. Lombard, Mr. Widows and Jeff, can you see those?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Chair, here's some proposed conditions. Variance is conditioned on the following. Number one, an alternate fire alarm system shall be installed and maintained comprising of a remote annunciator at the front entrance, system smoke detectors with integral heat detectors throughout the entire structure, audible/visual devices throughout the entire structure, and pull stations at all identified means of egress. Number two, the alternate fire alarm system shall be required to be off-premise monitored in a manner approved pursuant to OBC 901.6. Number three, the alternate fire alarm system and off-premise monitoring shall be considered required systems and listed as such on the certificate of occupancy by the building official. Number four, the alternate fire alarm system and off-premise monitoring shall be maintained as required systems utilizing the Ohio Fire Code and adopted NFPA standards. Number five, additional smoke detectors shall be provided in rooms 101, 104, 105, 107, and stair 111. Additional notification devices shall be provided in rooms 100, 103, and 106. Number six, any fuel-fired cooking appliances shall be provided with a Type 1 exhaust hood with integrated ANSEL fire suppression to the satisfaction of the building official. Number seven, a fire safety evacuation and emergency operational plan shall be developed, annually maintained, utilizing the design guidelines of Ohio Fire Code Chapter 4, approved by the fire official and listed as a special condition on the certificate of occupancy. Number eight, this variance is granted based on the use, construction, occupant load, project area, and level of activity identified on the approved construction documents, including the maintenance of all building systems and any conditions required herein. And number nine, the chief building official shall forward a copy of any certificate of occupancy to the fire department having either emergency response or fire prevention responsibility.
Okay, Mr. Widows, Mr. Lombard, Mr. Eaton, any questions or comments of the need for clarification?
No.
No, thank you.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion.
Do you want me to get it, Paul?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, thanks.
Your scroll up here. Yes, Mr. Chair, for Board of Building Appeals, case number 21-0046, the appellant is Weston Lombard of Solid Ground Farm for the premises 13262 Liars Corner Road, Millfield, Ohio 45761. The appellee is Jeffrey Eaton, Chief Building Official for the Division of Industrial Compliance in the state of Ohio, and adjudication order number 2021-020-455. I move to grant the variance subject to the conditions previously read into the record and noting the no objection of the chief building official and chief fire official.
Okay, that motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Mr. Lombard, Mr. Widows, the variance is granted on those conditions by unanimous vote of this board. Do you have anything further to come in front of the board at this time?
No, thank you again for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Anything on behalf of the division?
No, sir. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We stand adjourned on that case. Jody, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Good.
Okay. We'll go ahead and continue. Do any of the members need a break?
No.
Okay.
I'm good.
All right. let's move on to a third case on our agenda today, active case on our agenda. It too is a Division of Industrial Compliance case. It's case number 21-0036, and it deals with the premises located at 6481 Kinney Road, located in Mount Vernon, and the division's adjudication number is noted on our document. Let's have an introduction of the parties. I understand we have several appearing on behalf of the appellant. State your full name, spell your last name so we get that on the record correctly, and the capacity by which you're here as a representative. And we'll do the same thing with Mr. Eaton. We'll have an oath administered, and we'll get a waiver to proceed in front of a board of 4, and we'll begin the hearing. Who's appearing on behalf of the appellants?
This will be Nick Hay, Hay, J&F Construction, general contractor for the project.
Thank you.
My name is Jeff Beamer with J&F Construction. I'm the project manager for the project.
Thank you.
Donald Weaver, contractor's design engineer, the engineer of record on this project.
Thank you.
Mark Willem, Wiesen Victor, ILEM, CHA Consulting. We're the consulting engineer for the Knox County Airport.
Is Mr. Metters present?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Would you go ahead?
Michael Metters, MEDORS. I'm with Starfleet Aviation, the appellant.
Thank you. Mr. Eaton?
Jeff Eaton, EATON, Chief Building Official for the Division of Industrial Compliance.
Okay, if those that have just made their appearance would each stand, raise your right hand, and we'll have Jody administer the oath.
You swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
I do.
I do.
Okay. Do the appellants, are you comfortable? I don't know who's going to speak on behalf of the appellant, but first, but are you comfortable proceeding in front of a board of 4 today? Our 5th member had a scheduling conflict, and so if you were on before, you understand that the probability or at least the likelihood of a split vote is greater with an even number than it is probably with an odd number. And if there were to be a split vote, the adjudication by the division would be upheld and no variance would be granted. That being the case, do you still wish to proceed?
Oh, we do.
Okay. And Mr. Eaton, any objection?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay. The appellants have the floor.
Okay. So what we have here. Can you hear me?
You're breaking up you're breaking up a bit.
Okay. So what we have here is a private hangar out on Kinney Road at the Knox County Airport. And we are, per the code, being required to install a trench drain and to discharge to a sewer or an outside vented sump. The owner does not see a need for this, as his plane he flies it privately. He will not be using it in foul weather, so it won't be getting put away wet. And they also have an existing hangar on site, a mechanics hangar. So if he did need any service work done, he could take it over there. In lieu of the trench drain and oil separator and vented sump, the owner would like to propose a 20-gallon spill kit, which I believe you guys should have the specs on, and also to provide a shop vac for any reason if there was somehow to get water inside the building, it could be vacuumed up and disposed of properly.
Okay. Who was that speaking, by the way? Was that Mr. Hay?
Yeah, this is Nick Hay.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of Mr. Hay?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I do need to ask a question because we actually had two separate requests for variance. One was just this plumbing issue. Another one included a request for variance for sprinkler system. So I want to make sure that either those items are being withdrawn or not being considered regarding that, just so we know what the issues are before I ask other questions.
Okay. Yeah, the fire system, that has been resolved. We have resubmitted the plans and we just received a CPA back and those were all accepted. So we are just going for the plumbing.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. In that case, can you tell me what the hardship is for not putting a trench drain other than you don't want to?
It's going to be an additional $12,000 that wasn't budgeted. Then there's no sewer on the site.
So your repair facility doesn't have any sewer?
I'm trying to think where the closest would be. The closest sewer is at the office building, from what I understand. And that office building is approximately 600. The office building 600 feet away, straight shot, but that would be through existing hangars. So we'd be talking 1,000 to 1,500 feet of piping to get over there. But even then, I'm not sure that their system would be sized enough to handle our building.
Any other questions of Mr. Hank?
Yeah, where does the water drain to now that it shows swales and storm inlets and outlets? Where does it go?
That's for storm.
Well, I mean,
This is Jeff Beamer, the project manager for J&F Construction.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Beamer.
Yes, thank you. So what basically all we're asking is to eliminate the drainage requirement inside the hangar. The hardship that is pertaining to this is that, number one, there is no sewer closer than any sanitary sewer closer than 600 feet away. In order to get to that sewer, we would have to go obviously 600 feet plus or minus, plus not sure we would have even enough fall. I would also have to go through various taxiways or around taxiways and around existing hangars. Number two, all the hangars are on site except for one, which is the huge hangar over to the west end of the property for aerial manufacturing. No other hangars on the site have any trench drains or any sort of oil interceptors or anything within the hangars themselves. The approximate cost, to do a trench drain along with piping outside, pulling a plumbing permit, along with a holding tank and a high alarm level, and then to allow the owner to pump it out would be around 8,000 to 10,000 mark.
What's the cost of this project?
The overall cost of the project is about 500,000. The actual hangar is privately owned. The gentleman, Mr. Meters, it just is obviously a hobby pilot. He flies it, obviously as a hobby, and he would not be flying during foul weather. should there be any leaks or anything develop off the plane, they're going to be most likely minimal, and that's where we're asking for allowance to provide a spill kit for it. And so.
Maybe I'm missing something here, but I'm just looking at the code there. It says it has an exception for individual lease spaces not exceeding 2,000 square feet to have floor slopes to the door. The other thing is, I don't know why, but can't you just put an oil separator outside somewhere? There is drainage out there now. Like I said, it all looks like it goes into a storm inlet.
You're not allowed to connect floor drains into a storm, Brad.
Well, this would be exterior if you ran out the door and then put an oil separator.
You cannot drain an oil interceptor into stormwater drains, and everything around the proposed hangar is all storm.
This is Mark Villum with CHA Consulting. We're the airport's consulting engineer. Under NFPA 409 standard on aircraft hangars, the hangar that Mr. Meadows is proposing is a Group 3 aircraft hangar. And in the NFPA 409, it states that floor drainage is not required for a Group 3 hangar unless there is a fire protection system, and it's my understanding that there is not going to be a sprinkler system in this building. That's, again, under the NFPA 409 for this group hangar is deferred to the local authority having jurisdiction. It's my understanding that there is not going to be a sprinkler system. And then per the NFPA 409, paragraph 8.1.4 says that the hangar aprons are to slope away from the hangar building so you don't have exterior water coming into the building. It further states then in Appendix A, 8.1.1 that floor drainage is not required in a Group 3 hangar. So that's the basis for the airport's position that they agree there's not a need for an interior floor drain, provided the spill kit and other means of collecting any water that does get inside is addressed as the Mr. Meadows has indicated he would do.
Thank you, Mr. Villum. Does that incite any further questions of the appellants?
Well, I guess the state of Ohio seems to disagree. Otherwise, there wouldn't be an adjudication then.
Well, let's hear from Jeff on that.
And I probably do need, Mr. Chair, and I know it's not necessarily an issue before us. It is still on the adjudication order, maybe from Mr. Eaton or from the appellant, why we don't have a fire suppression system in here, because I don't see any exceptions that, it's an exception for not requiring foam, but I don't see an exception for an aircraft hangar, that's 6,500 square feet. Any exceptions that would allow that. So I'd like an explanation on that as well, too.
Anyone can chime in on that.
This is Jeff Eden. I don't have a good code site, but I know there are exceptions if it's considered a private garage, or size of the plane, size of the fuel capacities of the aircraft, I believe, can get them out of the suppression system. I can dig and get that while you all deliberate, but one statement I had, as far as the reference standard of NFPA 409, I agree that there is verbiage that does not require the drainage because of lack of suppression. However, the Ohio Building Code in that section, and I think it's 412 that we referenced, does require it. So whenever there's a conflict between building code and reference standard, the building code drives, and so that's why it's for adjudication order. I guess just a few comments from myself. We've had similar hangars. We've had garages with other agencies that stored vehicles. that had a similar issue with lack of sanitary on site. In those cases, they did provide trench drains to a holding tank outside the building. And if there was a spill, they could have it cleaned up by EPA or a company that can clean out the tanks. I guess I would lean towards that direction. As far as ownership, the current proposed owner may have certain uses for that, but if that hangar is ever sold, the next person is not going to know the limitations for the use of the hangars, and you have no control of future uses, future ownerships. That would be my only concern. That's all I have for now, Mr. Chair.
Any of the appellant representatives want to reply to Mr. Eaton's thoughts and comments?
This is McHay, JNF. As far as your sprinkler questions you're having, there's a fuel limitation that if you're under, I believe it's 1,600 gallons, you do not need that. And this aircraft he's going to have in there is 260 gallons max. Also, for a Group 3 hangar, if it's under 8,000 square feet, or if it has a hangar door of 28 feet or less in height, it's not required. And there was no hazardous operations, so that's why the sprinkler all got taken off.
Okay, further questions of member of the board of any of the parties?
Yeah, I guess I go along with what Jeff just said, providing and it says that in the code as well, that you can provide a outside vented sump to collect discharge that could be cleaned out later.
Any other questions or comments by members of the board?
Jeff, go ahead, Ab. Sorry, Paul.
That's all right. Just because it's noted on the site plan, I assume that a similar sized hangar, is it going to be the same owner or different owner for the future one? That's not really part of this, but it is shown on your site plan.
Airport. McHay.
This
airport.
You broke up. Was that Mr. Hay? Or Mr.
Yeah,
Metters?
this is McHay.
Yeah, very hard to hear.
That future hangar is the airport. That won't be Mr. Metters.
Okay. All right.
The reason why I'm asking that, Mr. Chair, just so the other board members and the appellants, maybe Mr. Eaton understands my direction. Right. So right now, $10,000 or so. It seems like is the cost, or 11 or something like that. And a $500,000 building is really a very small percentage. If there's two buildings now, so it's $10,000 out of $1 million of construction. It's a very small percentage. So the hardship item for this, for me, does not seem to be something that's applicable. In fact, if it is the additional hangar is going to be constructed by the airport themselves, they can see we are a window into the future for what's going to be required for that particular structure. And if that's the case, it may be incumbent upon them to work out some deal to share the cost for either attachment to sanitary or for a sanitary pit, as we've been discussing.
Fair enough.
This is Mark Vilm with CHA. Just a point of clarification on what you just said. So, am I understanding correctly that connection to sanitary is not necessarily required, but if there was a holding tank constructed that could be pumped out, similar to like the septic system, because the airport terminal building's on a septic system, there's no sanitary within the airport.
And I don't know the particulars of it. That's what I think I understood
Yeah.
from Mr. Eaton.
Right.
That is correct. A holding tank similar to that would be our recommendation. The spill
Now-
kits, okay, but someone has to be there to actually use them. If there's a spill at night and no one's in the building, then that would be an issue.
Now, let me ask Mr. Eaton real quick, is that a system that would meet the requirements of the code, or would this be a variance item that would that system would be a condition?
I believe it would still require a variance. I can't think of a provision in our plumbing code that allows you to have that type of runoff just held where there's manual effort to, eliminate the hazard.
Okay.
But I mean, under that provision of the floor surface where it mentions it in the code, it says to the sewer or an outside vented sump. Isn't that what we're talking about? Outside vented sump?
Correct. I believe so.
Chip, I think you had a question as well. Or
Yeah, I guess I'm going to direct this to Mr. Began and Mr. Eaton. Is this not also involve an EPA regulation?
I think you're correct for the clean out. And
Well, most definitely with the clean out, but I don't know. I'm not an EPA, obviously. I'm not that's not my bailiwick, but regardless, I guess the other thing that I would like to see is input from the fire official, because they're going to have to deal with any spill that may occur, regardless of whether there's a sump or it just lays flat in the hangar. I mean, honestly, a 20-gallon or 260 gallons of fuel plus whatever oils and lubricants on board the plane is not going to be handled by a 20-gallon spill kit.
Any one of the appellant representatives want to comment on that?
Yeah, this is Jeff Beamer with J&F Construction. If a holding tank is required, I would put no less than a 500-gallon in, and it would be considered a holding tank with a manhole that would be able to be pumped out by a certified company that would be able to dispose of any fuels or oils that would be drained into it, if there was any at all.
Chip, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Someone needs to mute. Okay. All right. Let's go around the table here. Thoughts by members of the board moving forward?
Mr. Chair, this is Paul Began. I would be happy to kind of say, I understand probably the largest portion of the cost is getting to some type of sanitary. I can see that there is a hardship that there is not sanitary available in the immediate area. I am not supportive of removing the trench drain completely. I believe a viable solution to this would be to provide a trench drain to a vented sump pit, and outstanding questions regarding, are there other requirements from other agencies? I don't think we can answer that, nor should we try to presuppose to answer those. I would say that I think that I don't know if it would be better at this point in time to maybe set this aside till we can get the fire official to provide some documentation, or if we would be willing to make a motion that requires the fire official letter of support. I'm not sure which direction that needs to go, but I do think we need to get his or her input.
Correct. Brad, Chip, your thoughts on whether we were to continue this matter until we got more information from the fire official, or are you comfortable moving forward in some way with a condition that we receive subsequent correspondence from the fire official?
Mr. Chair, this is Jeff. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
I texted my plumbing chief. That does require EPA since our plumbing code only takes the provisions 30 inches outside the building. So it would require another agency approval, but it is permitted.
That's probably hearsay since you got it by text.
Exactly.
Chip, Brad, I guess the question on fire official.
I mean, the fire official's opinion on the subject we're talking about, not the sprinkler system, is that right?
Right. Yes.
I mean, that'd be a letter of no objection. Would be fine with me.
This is Jeff Beamer with JNF again. Can I possibly interrupt quickly?
Go, please do.
We have already been in contact with the Mount Vernon Fire Department. We do have a letter from them with their approval to not have a sprinkler system in the building. Unfortunately, we did not attach it to the paperwork because with our initial resubmission of plan approval, we got approval to not worry about having to have a sprinkler system. So we did not attach that letter to this documentation for you guys' review. So we do have Mount Vernon Fire Department's approval to not have to have a sprinkler system within this.
Do you have that available to put on the screen?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, I don't know if that's necessarily relevant. A no objection letter to a sprinkler system doesn't give us, hey, are you okay if you have to come there and put out a fire that your trench drain goes into a vented sump pit? That your discharge goes into. That's the question we want to have answered and have approval to.
And yeah, Mr. Beamer, I'm assuming the letter does not reach that threshold, correct?
No, the actual letter does not reach that threshold because, to be quite honest, I didn't think that was much of an issue. But I can certainly talk to the fire chief and the fire prevention officer, Terry Davis, in regards to that, and I can certainly get documentation with their approval.
Okay, and Chip, are you comfortable with a letter of no objection on that issue?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any before we sort of move towards resolution of this, are there any other questions of any of the parties or representatives of the parties at this time by members of the board? Mr. Hay or others on behalf of the appellant, anything else to present before we sort of take a straw poll among ourselves?
No.
Okay, Mr. Eaton, same question.
No, sir, I'm good with going forward.
Okay. All right. Paul, do you need some time?
Yeah, a few minutes, Mr. Chair, or about a minute or so.
Okay. Jody, we'll go off record. If anyone needs to step away to get a glass of water or use the restroom, you're welcome to do that, including Jody.
Okay, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Jody, if you're, yep, Jody's there. We'll go back on the record.
And as before, hopefully this, now my computer is used to having items shared. Let's see how we do. Beautiful. The variance is conditioned on the following. Number one, a trench drain as required by OBC 412.4.3 shall be provided with outlet to a minimum 500-gallon vented sump pit, which shall be regularly maintained to the satisfaction of the building official. Number two, a letter of no objection specific to the above condition shall be submitted by the fire official to the Board of Building Appeals and the chief building official before a construction permit is issued. Number three, approval for the above condition as required by other authorities having jurisdiction shall be obtained to the satisfaction of the building official. And number four, this variance is granted based on the use, construction, occupant load, building area, and level of activity identified on the approved construction documents, including the maintenance of all building systems and any conditions required herein.
Okay, first, I'll put that to the appellants. Those four proposed conditions are up on the screen. I know it's sort of a representation by committee, but does anybody have any questions with regard to those, the language of those proposed conditions, or have any questions that need to be asked of members of the board with respect to the same?
I have a question.
Please. And this is?
Michael Metters.
Okay.
Appellant. I have a question on number 3. Can you give us some guidance on what you're looking for there?
We've had some discussion this afternoon that there may be an EPA approval required. I cannot confirm that. Mr. Eaton said he has some information that indeed may be the case. If that is the case, then pursuit of that approval is on the onus of the appellant and shall be provided to the satisfaction of the building official.
Right, I mean, it goes without saying, as the owner, if there are other agencies that have regulations that would need to be met in order to operate along the lines of these variances, that's incumbent upon you to secure those permits. That's all. Any other questions? Okay, very good. Mr. Eaton, those proposed conditions satisfactory to the division?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. I guess we're at the time where I would entertain a motion.
Yes, Mr. Chair, for Board of Building Appeals case number 21-0036. The appellant is Michael Metters of Starfleet Aviation LLC for the premises aircraft hangar located at 6481 Kinney Road in Mount Vernon, Ohio 43050. The appellee is Jeffrey Eaton. Building official, Bureau of Building Code Compliance for the state of Ohio, and adjudication order number 2021-020326. I move to grant a variance for items number 7 and 14 of the adjudication order, subject to the conditions previously read into the record, and noting no objection of the building official.
Okay, that motion's been duly made. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chair.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, gentlemen, the variance unanimously has passed this board through its deliberation with those 4 conditions. Mr. Hay or others, anything to come before the board further?
No.
Mr. Eaton? Mr. Eaton?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, very well. Thank you. That case is concluded. Do we need another break? Does anybody want to? Susan, what's the status, if you know? I'm assuming the 130 parties for the 045 case or 0045 case are present.
Yes, I believe the appellant is Jeff Eaton is here. I'm not sure about the fire department.
Okay, is
they are present or not by phone.
All right, so anybody? Yep, go ahead.
I'm sorry, anyone here from the Chagrin Falls Fire Department?
Yes, my name is John Catani. I'm here with the Chagrin Falls Fire Department.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Captain. Are you the only one going to appear today on behalf of the fire department?
I believe Paul Sincaglia should also be here, but I'm not sure if he's on this call.
Mr. Sincaglia, are you present? Any reason we can't proceed, Mr. Captain?
No, I think we can move.
Okay, very good. Let's call our next case. It was scheduled for 1:30 on our docket. Thank you for your indulgence. It's recognizing it's a few minutes after 2. It's case number 21-0045. It also is a Division of Industrial Compliance case, and the division's adjudication is noted on the docket. Let's have an introduction of the parties. Let's begin first with the appellant, or in this case, appellant representatives. Please state your full name. I'd ask that you spell your last name and the capacity by which you're here. We'll do the same with the building and fire officials.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is James Orr. The last name is O-R-R, and I am the general contractor for Cleveland Plumbing Supply.
Thank you.
Craig Dixon. I'm the architect for the project.
Hello?
Yes.
This is Paul Sincaglia for the docket right now.
Okay, thank you. We'll get to 1 second. Thank you. Is Mr. Morvillius there, please?
Yes, I am. Bart Morvillius, Morvillius.
And you're the owner?
Correct.
Representative of the owner. Okay. Mr. Eaton?
Jeff Eaton, EATON, Chief Building Official with the Division of Industrial Compliance.
Okay, Mr. Sincaglia is here. Captain, can you enter your appearance, please?
Yeah, my name is Captain John Catani, C-A-T-A-N-I, with the Sugar and Falls Fire Department.
Okay, if Mr. Dixon, Mr. Moore, Mr. Morbilius, Mr. Eaton, Mr. Sincaglia, and Captain Catani can stand, raise your right hand. Jody, would you administer the oath?
Do you swear that the testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do.
Okay, gentlemen, we are by statute a board of 5. That's the way we were enacted to operate many years ago when the legislature enacted the legislation that created this board. But today we're only a board of 4 because one of our members had a scheduling conflict. Mr. Dixon, Mr. Orr, Mr. Morbilius, any concern about proceeding in front of a board of 4 today?
I don't think so.
Okay. And I'll ask our 2 fire official representatives, any concern with proceeding today in front of a board of 4?
No. No.
And Mr. Eaton, same question?
No problem. Thank you.
Okay. Well, Mr. Dixon or Mr. Orr, you have the floor.
Okay, well, you know what? What I would like to do is, if I could, and I hope, Paul, you're okay with this, I'm going to kind of defer to you to start with.
Is that Mr. Sincaglia?
Yes.
This is Mr. Sincaglia. Last name spelling is Sincaglia. I apologize. I stepped in over myself and then noticed I was causing a lot of feedback, so I had to shut down for a second. I'm working with the fire department, acting with the fire marshal and Captain Catani. We have met with the appellant and spoken to the appellant on multiple occasions. Following that, this is an existing structure. They're remodeling predominantly the first floor and the second floor office spaces. And in the most recent plan review and therefore adjudication, there were 3 items that remained unresolved and would put it in front of this board. In those discussions, worked with the architect regarding how occupant load calculations should be done based on our opinion of the space. We have no issue with the first floor, the second floor. Methodologies and use of spaces needed to be corrected and updated for the purpose of the record and board. So item number 1 on the adjudication letter regarding occupant loads, I believe has been corrected and is not needing a variance. However, items 2 and 3 on the adjudication letter dealt with, they had some new stairs which were not in compliance with current requirements for occupant loads greater than 50. They are 36 inches wide instead of the minimum 44. And I'm missing one other item here. Oh, the rating of the corridor or the hallway, which if you're looking at your screen now is the space on the left that connects the newly remodeled offices. And Craig, I don't know if you're able to show the line of demarcation between the line of actual work and then the spaces that were not unmodified by this project going forward. Ultimately, we have worked through this as part of Chagrin Falls village ordinances. Buildings such as this get remodeled. They are required to install a fully NFPA 72 compliant fire alarm system with smoke detection throughout. Those documents have been submitted, and is my understanding, unless Mr. Eaton has other information, that they have been reviewed and approved. Therefore,
Jeff, well, let's stop there. Let me stop you there real quick. Jeff, Mr. Sincaglia has talked about the universe of what's before us and what has been perhaps approved or resolved already. Is he correct from your vantage point?
I can't answer that immediately, but while the conversation is going on, I can log in and verify that. No problem.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Sincaglia.
Thanks, sir. So the last 2 items deal with the width of the stairs and the rating of the corridor. So the fire department's position, we had the architect go through in the drawings you're looking at on the screen, calculated travel distances, and as you can see, there are actually 4 stairwells from this building All occupants in this building are able to reach and exit in less than 200 feet. 3 of these 4 stairs actually probably qualify as exit access stairways, but go relatively immediately to the exterior of the building. And then we allocated the occupant loading to correct the calculations on the, I'll call it the west side of the print, but the left side of your drawing for the newly remodeled offices. Total occupant load there is 32 persons based on that calculation. And all walls are constructed of type X gypboard on wood studs. And it's our opinion that, you know, these walls are substantial compliance with the code, and that any deviation from this 30 persons or greater requiring a fully 1-hour rated corridor, deviating from that is not a problem. In fact, and in gross summary, the changes they've made to this building in and including the new fire alarm system once it's installed will be an improvement to the overall condition of this building and the level of safety.
Okay, Mr. Dixon, is there anything to add?
I believe Terry briefly covered it all. We've shown all those egress routes, actually 6 different egress routes to get out of the building. And the 2 new stairs that we put in could actually accommodate all of the people on the 2nd floor if the 2nd floor were considered a. They're just asking for those 9 offices over on the left side of your photograph there. I believe that Mr. Sincaglia has pretty much reviewed it all.
Jeff, we'll hear from you.
Mr. Chair, we did approve the fire alarm as part of the partial approval on April 19th. So given that and the comments in the previous hearing, I'm okay with the occupant load. I agree if it's going to be the tabular posting that item could be withdrawn. The other remaining items, I have no objections with the alarm and detection throughout as proposed.
Okay, board members, questions of any of the parties?
Yeah, maybe we should have started with me, Mr. Chair. Here's my concern. Great, we put the real occupant load on those rooms. We have over half of the building that still has no occupant load associated with it. So if we're talking about corridors and stairs, you know, this really doesn't even give the full picture, right? And the fact that the stair, you know, multiple stairs are not enclosed to this thing, of which if there's a fire downstairs, that smoke is going to be pouring not only up the stairwells, which are those egress routes, but through then the corridors, which are the escape paths. So I don't think I'm satisfied. Number one, we don't have an occupant. We've labeled out, here's the stock room, file room. Actually, it's a maze to get back into most all of those rooms. So my concern, and this is really for the chief, fire chief here, is you guys going to be okay sending your team up unenclosed stairwells through a maze of a building through multiple rooms to do your search and rescue if there's a fire event here? And that's really my concern.
All right. I concur with your concern, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this building. Building's originally built in 1840s. It was a mill at one point. I actually have conveyors and other openings in this structure that are not necessarily well represented in the space because they were outside of the area original scope of work of this architect. This is one of many buildings in our community that are, not sure what definition you'd use for it. However, to your first point, which was occupant loading, we had indicated to the architect, and he has since demonstrated that the entire 2nd floor of this building should be treated as a business occupancy for the purposes of occupant load calculation. That number came to, and correct me if I'm wrong, Craig, that it's 82 or 83 people?
This is 85, yes.
All right, 85 people. And that all the stairs and egress points that currently exist, as well as the new stairs added, adequately accommodate that egress. As far as interior fire attack or any action like that,
And before you go on, how we have stairs that are open, right? So part of that means of egress is open stairwells.
Actually, sir.
Go ahead, Craig. You can describe your architecture better than I am, but two of the stairs actually are enclosed at the bottoms with doorways.
Wide closed at the top. So
Hold on, wait, I think Mr. Dixon, that may be you, but you're breaking up on us.
The two new stairs have doors at the bottom, which do close them off, and per the way we entered this project, that would meet code. The other two stairs in the back, which are the existing stairs, have doors at the top which enclose them and provide that fire barrier. We took that 85 person occupant and divided that by 4 stairs. And if you rounded it up to 88 people, you would have 22 people. I'm oversimplifying, but you would have 22 people in each stairway, which would not require a 4-inch stairway. A 3-foot stairway would be fine, which is the way we intentionally designed this to begin with. So, all this with Mr. Sincaglia, why these things are here. He wanted us to show the rooms that are there, stockroom offices that are there. They are using the 9 offices on the left side of your plan, is the south side, and those other offices are not to have people working in them, but he wanted us to label them as what they are currently. The people that are in the offices on the right-hand corner are moving to the left, the new offices. We just did what Mr. Sincaglia asked, just to make it a worst-case scenario, because you people on the board came back and said, what would stop them from building offices over there? That is not their intent. That is not what they wish to do. They're not wishing to do anything.
I understand that, but it doesn't matter if that's their intent now. After you get your permit, your occupancy permit, you could fill those rooms with the people. And there's nobody that's going to necessarily stop you from doing that. And what we're talking about is major components of the means of egress for this building, 2 of which are brand new stairs. That's why I think it's a big deal. Not, oh, we're only going to use this little part of the thing. We don't care about the rest of the building. I think it's a big deal.
Well, I understand what you're saying. The stairs do have 5/8 fire code drywall all the way around them.
Are the shaft wells rated? Are they rated?
Yes, sir. For U419, yes.
Okay, how can they be rated enclosures if there's no door on the top or the bottom?
That is permitted. Mr. Eaton, if you would like to jump in on that. I've
been an architect for almost 30 years now, and I do code consulting. I don't think I've ever seen an approved enclosed stairwell that does not have a door that meets that definition.
You can have a door at the top or the bottom. I'm not here, I'm not trying to argue with you. I appreciate your I've been doing it for 38 in my office, and that is permitted by the code, a door at the top or the bottom, which we've done.
Paul, you want to maybe chime in on this?
The only thing I have to say is my recollection of the code requirement is that anytime you have a stair that only connects 2 floors, provided it's not concealed and so on, is allowed to be open between floors. Now, in this case, they are enclosed at the bottom to prevent, open smoke migration up the 2 new stairs, which is an improvement over what was in this building previously. We had the occupant load done because we share a similar concern to, and I apologize if I'm not catching the names of the members of the board. that spaces could potentially be utilized or reutilized, and that was the reason I insisted on treating the entire second floor as a business occupancy rather than, say, partially storage, and reducing the occupant load, and that all travel distances be based on that more conservative assessment. The fact of the matter is this building exists and it was occupied, up to and, prior to this remodel in exactly the same formats we're more or less talking about. The layout on the floors was slightly different, but this is a step toward improvement. There's been a lot of structural reinforcement and other efforts here. I do not, what's the word I want for this? I share your initial concerns because this is just one of those buildings we've all inherited. I think the improvements that we're making here are improving the building. I will not go so far as to imply that it meets the current code, but it certainly tries to meet the intent of that code with regards to the scope of work that is being executed here. And that overall, this building is slightly safer than it was previously. And that's pretty much all I can bring to the table on the fire service side. This building was built in the 1800s. It has been played with, modified, and abused by any number of people through the years. And this is not a modification of that use. I think I've demonstrated, or had the architect demonstrate rather, that people working in this building can get to the egresses within code specified limits. The emergency lighting is there. We've added full fire alarm throughout it to aid in their notification and rapid evacuation. And then as far as interior firefighting access, this is one of those buildings you're not going to spend a lot of time in if you had a significant event.
Okay, other questions by members of the board of any of the parties?
What would it take to enclose the stairways, with what Mr. Began is talking about?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you already have doors and enclosure at the bottom, and they're just open to that second floor, so we're connecting two floors.
Why can't you put a door at the top of the stairs?
We could. We could.
I guess that's my overall question is, where's the barrier to compliance with the code? What's the hardship?
Well, the east side, which is the bottom of your sheet, or the stair on the bottom, we could build a door into that one. The one on the west side, well, yeah, you could do it. Well, there's space in the hallway.
There would be a way, due to the fact that we kind of were the understanding that this could be a problem. The stairwells are completely fire rated, double drywall, drywalled inside and outside with 5/8 fire code. The doors at the bottom, we could add doors at the top if that would solve the problem.
Well, that's a good question. Does that solve the problem? And that's a question to my colleagues.
Mr. Chair, if I could weigh in on Mr. Began's question about the continuity.
Please.
I just looked in the building code, section 713.5 talks about exit stair enclosures being constructed as a rated shaft. And then it goes on to say in 713.7 regarding continuity, and it describes, openings, protected openings in a shaft. There are some exceptions. If you had like a mechanical room that had a shaft that went multiple floors vertically, about not having the protected opening at the bottom of the shaft, provided that room is rated. In this case, if you don't have rated corridors, it's not really applicable, but using that as an example, without a door at the top or bottom, then everything that's connected to that leading to the exit would have to be rated almost like an exit passageway. But if it's possible to enclose these with rated assemblies at the top, then you would have continuity of the protected stairways.
This is Paul Sincaglia again. When I looked at this in particular, I was looking at OVC section 1019, which deals with exit access stairways, which in this case, we really have exit access stairways and not so much exits themselves. So you're not measuring exits to the stairwell door as you might typically do. I had the calculations performed as they were exit access stairways, and in accordance with 1019.3, which is occupancies other than I2 and I3, item number 1 permits exit access stairways and ramps that serve or atmospherically communicate only between 2 stories. Such interconnected stories shall, it's just not required to be fully enclosed. I thought, based on that, or my interpretation of that requirement, this facility is in compliance.
Mr. Chair, I would concur with that as long as the travel distances from the most remote areas of that second floor down to the first floor and out the building are within those limitations.
Mr. Dixon or Mr. Sincaglia?
Yes, they are. The furthest distance is 175 feet, 6 inches.
Okay, thoughts and sentiments of members of the board or questions for that matter?
Mr. Chair, this is Paul Began. I can appreciate Cleveland Plumbing has been a fixture for a long time. They are a great local business and contributor to the community. So I can appreciate wanting to allow them to move things ahead. I think unfortunately my position is going to be, hey, why get almost to code compliance when, especially for the new construction, when we could be code compliant? I understand this is an old building. We've inherited it. It's been occupied a long time. But now is the time when we're doing new things to it to not add to it being not quite the way it should be. So I think my opinion on this particular case would be, hey, I don't really see a gigantic hardship with having to do the things that they're asking for in their variance to make this building safer, right? It's an old building. I deal with old buildings all of the time, and they're mazes and they're nests, and there's lots of difficulties. But yes, what they're doing is going to be an improvement with the fire alarm system. But I don't think that's an excuse for not requiring any of the new construction to have to be compliant with the code. That's my opinion, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Chip?
I concur with Mr. Began. If you've reached the threshold where the new code, the existing code, I should say, comes into play because you're remodeling the building, then I'm of the opinion that you've got to do it to code. I've not heard or I've not had it explained to me what the hardship is in terms of not complying with